What is up, everybody? We are back with a brand new episode of the Silver Lions Playbook podcast. Of course, we are back with the co-host Thomas Urich,
Hey guys, how you doing?
and today, not too much is going on the NFL front. Let's be honest. We've got a couple rumors, stuff that's circulating, but nothing too big, nothing huge, other than your guy Jabril Peppers. But today we have the Lions are going to be on Hard Knocks this year. And I think this is huge, and more than just, Lions fans being able to see, in depth of what this, front office is and what this coaching staff is. I think it's really going to be eye-opening for people outside of this organization and people that aren't a fan of this organization to go, well, I've always laughed at the Lions, but it looks like they're putting something together over there. So maybe we could gain some respect around the league with, people seeing the more in-depth stuff that's going on in the building and at the practice field. And I think that's really going to be nice to see too. Another thing is seeing, how these guys are, personality wise, because you don't get to see too much of these NFL players other than their couple interviews that they do. You don't really see them other than playing football. So it'll be really cool to see how they interact with each other and how that culture, that culture change that Dan Campbell is trying to put in Detroit, how that's working out so far.
So, as a Detroit Lions fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you react if, Campbell looks like the biggest dick out of this Hard Knocks?
I mean,
just the worst person ever.
I would be pissed off because I'd go, damn, we got another one. I really don't see that happening though. Personally, I feel like Dan's the farthest thing away from that. I feel like if anything, people will come away from this and being like, wow, he's a lot nicer than I thought. I feel like he's very more mellow than most people believe. He's always he's intense, but it's not a rude intensity. You know what I mean? He's just intense.
Said he wanted to bite off someone's kneecap.
Right.
First, yeah, it's not. Yeah. Well, it's not mean. Okay. Well,
it's not. They're the one that knocked us down in the first place, and it's in this metaphorical situation. So, I'm not too mad
joking.
At that.
I like that better.
But so yeah, Hard Knocks I think is really cool. And Lions fans have wanted this for a while. We've wanted to be on this, and we're not in really a position to win, so it's not really going to matter the outcome of the season. With the Hard Knocks, we kind of have low expectations anyway. So it's just going to be nice to see us involved.
Question: I don't know if they released this yet or not, but is it going to be just off season, or is it going to be the in season like they did the Indianapolis Colts?
I'm not sure about that. I don't think they've said anything. And if they did, I just haven't seen it. I haven't really followed it too closely, honestly, after it got announced, but it would be cool if it went into the season too, to see, how that plays out as well. Especially if we start losing, see how the players can and the coaches can handle that.
So to be honest, I haven't seen an episode of Hard Knocks in a long time, probably since the Miami Dolphins season.
Oh wow.
And I don't remember if they go into the draft at all. I think it would be cool. Bit. That's the reason why I'm saying is I think it'd be cool to see the inside of the draft room and see all of the decisions that the Lions get to make at number 2 and 32. So
yeah, that's a good point. I agree there. It'd be really fun to see if they do it that way, to see, if we get some trade offers, how that goes down. If we do accept a trade, how it goes down, it'll be really cool to see the intricacies of, everything like that. So I really like that point as well. But other than the Hard Knock stuff, as of right now, we don't have too much Lions news other than the fact that Jared Davis is back in Detroit. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't hate it. He got a vet minimum. Last year we tried to bring him back, but we just got outpriced by the Jets. At $7 million, I'm okay with that. I let him walk for that. And that was a smart thing to do. And now, he was injured last year. Robert Saleh actually said a lot of good things about him though coming back. saying that he looked really good in training camp, looked really good when he played. He was just injured last year, and coming into a new style of defense was a little bit tough for him. But I think he will be able to play okay. I think he'll be more of a, depth player, rotational piece kind of guy coming into next year. I don't expect, Jared Davis to come out and be our starting linebacker off the bat. It's possible though. I mean, he was our starter for a few years here. It just depends on what we have, with Chris Board, and Derek Barnes and the other couple guys, Sean Dion Hamilton, and Anzalone, and what rookies we get. Because honestly, Jared Davis isn't even a lock to make the roster right now, in my opinion. Depending on what happens based on his contract, because it's very low guarantees, veteran minimum. We could basically cut him and not lose anything. So people that are mad, I don't understand it. I get it. He wasn't very good for us, but it's not like we're giving him $10 million to come back and be a starter. He's going to be a rotational piece, depth guy. So with that, I like it because he was a first round pick. And we've seen, Charles Harris come over as an first round pick for a different team, the Miami Dolphins. And he played very well for us. So we could see, a first round pick for Detroit come back with this new regime and actually play well because, as he didn't have the best coaching staff here in Detroit when he played for us. So,
well, it breaks my heart. The Detroit Lions fans still don't like Matt Patricia, but it's okay.
Well, what do you expect?
Back
Set
to
our
much
franchise
less,
back.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but my initial thought of seeing this signing is that Chris Board is in trouble. I think that Jared Davis takes a lot of his snaps just because, I think Jared Davis is a little bit better. He hasn't shown that potential yet, but a lot of it has to do with injuries and being in a couple of different systems. And like you said, the Detroit Lions regime before Campbell wasn't the best. And so I think that everything that we said last week about Chris Bird and his signing could be applied to Davis. And I won't be surprised if I think ultimately you guys are gonna keep both, but I won't be surprised if Bird ends up being that special teams player only type of guy instead of that rotational defensive guy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that too, depends on what we do in the draft, because now it kind of opens it up that, we don't necessarily have to take one. I'd still like to, get one in the third, fourth round if there's one worth it available. And then, they're probably off the roster at that point. One of them likely would be cut if that were the case. But I feel like the Lions right now are just kind of doing similar things to what they did last year, giving prove it deals to guys to try to figure out if they can make a difference on this defense, because we're not ready to win yet. And I think too, another thing on the Lions front, our president came out and said that we won't be changing our logo or our uniforms this upcoming season. It'll be next year. And I think that is a little indicative of how they feel about this roster. Because if they were like, oh, we can win this year, they would do it now, because then it would usher in a new era. You know what I mean? It would be like, oh, here's the new uniforms, the new logo, the new roster. We're coming out and we're going to win. The fact that they're pushing it off a year kind of shows to me that they know we're not ready yet. I mean, they're not coming out to tank or anything like that, but they know we're not, a playoff contending team. At the end of the day, we're a wild card team at our absolute ceiling, in my opinion. And I don't even think we do that this year, to be honest, but I think we'll win six to 8 games, something like that. A little bit better than we did last year. And as long as we win, a few more games that we did last year, that's progress. That's all I can really ask for.
Yeah. I think I said this in last week's podcast, but if the Lions can turn the number 2 pick this year into the number 7 or 8 pick next year, that would be steady progress, and it would show that this rebuild and that Campbell is working. So
yeah. And I mean, we always compare it to the 49ers. I feel like that's the rebuild that always, if the 49ers can do it, the Lions can do it. And we have to remember, it took them 3 years to get to the playoffs before they were even talking about, a potential firing of Kyle Shanahan before he made the playoffs the first time. And I mean, this is how that goes. You get a couple early picks. I think next year we'll probably have, a top 10 pick again, and then we have a second first rounder. And then that third year is when you really take that next step. You go hard in free agency, you sign a guy you really need on your team. And then, you go on and get your draft picks as well, and your rookies in there that can contribute to what you need now. And then you win. And I feel like that is, where we're working toward there. And another thing is, it makes me feel a lot better about this front office, because it shows to me they're not trying to push it. They're going to take their time and build it the right way, and not try to save their jobs in a way that a lot of other people do by, spending a lot of money or trading for somebody that they don't necessarily have to trade for right now. So I think that's a really good sign for this front office.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I also really like the comparison to the San Francisco 49ers rebirth. I think that there might be a lot of parallels there.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to affirm, well, not really affirm, but I would like to caution that the 49ers rebirth is definitely not over yet. A lot of that
Bingo.
needs to do with Trey Lance and this Jimmy Garoppolo thing. But if Trey Lance becomes the quarterback that everyone expected him to be when they drafted him third, then yeah, that's a great rebirth. But
right,
Kyle Shanahan's job is not safe by any means, in my opinion.
I think it's safe to an extent. It would basically have to blow up, I think, for him to lose his job. Like I personally think they would have to go out and be like 4-12 for him to get fired.
I don't think he is going to get fired this year. But I think that if Jimmy Garoppolo gets caught or gets traded for something less than what they eventually wanted to get, like initially wanted to get traded for,
right?
And then Trey Lance is not the quarterback, like he's a total bust, then I think Shanahan's probably up. But
well, see, that's the thing. I don't know if I blame Shanahan for that, though. That's my problem with that situation, because you're probably right. From a realistic standpoint, that they probably will blame Shanahan for that and fire him. But he's a guy that, consistently has won. He made it to the Super Bowl. He wins in the playoffs. And with what you could say is a lackluster quarterback, in an offense that, I believe Kyle Shanahan needs a good quarterback, above average, good to great quarterback to win that Super Bowl. And I'm not going to say it's Jimmy G's fault that they didn't win that Super Bowl, but thinking back on it, there was a couple throws there at the end that he should have made. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that I can't really blame Kyle Shanahan. He had the guy open, his quarterback just didn't hit him. Which is another thing I really don't like about front offices. They don't take the fall themselves. There's always a fall guy that gets fired. And unfortunately, I think you're right that if the Niners can't get it together, it will probably be Kyle Shanahan, which sucks, because I really do think he's a great coach, in my opinion. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Not top 5 necessarily, but I think he's top 10, top 15.
I think he needs to win a close game to be considered one of the top coaches in the league.
What do you mean?
Well, every big game they've been ever in, Kyle Shanahan has always fumbled the bag. Think about Atlanta.
I disagree.
Atlanta?
Yeah, but he the
fumbled
OC.
the bag.
I don't know if that's his fault.
Then last year, they had the Rams basically fumbled the bag again. Well, this year, technically, because it's new season. So, I don't know. Every big game that Kyle Shanahan has been in, he always ends up losing.
What about all the playoff games that they didn't lose?
This year?
All of them ever. I mean, he went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were in the playoffs last year and this year. And they won.
Yeah, but like even the Chiefs game, like I don't actually remember that game, but I feel like they were up at like points and like
they were, yeah.
I don't know. I would give them credit for being the Packers twice. The Packers are like a really good team, so
Right.
for them to gain Aaron Rodgers' head and everything is awesome. But again, I don't know.
I
It
think,
just seems to me that the narrative is that he can't win the big game.
yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with the narrative that is the narrative, but I disagree with the narrative.
Yeah,
Because I feel like personally, I'm not like the Niners, I feel like almost overachieve every year. Like people don't
yeah.
look at them and go, that's a Super Bowl team. They go, 8-8, well, 8-9, 9-8 now. Whereas the last few years they've been 11-5, 12-4, 10-6, or 9-7, whatever it is, making the playoffs consistently. I feel like if anything, he's been overachieving with what he has because up until this last season, they never had a true wide receiver one in San Francisco. I guess you could say George Kittle, but I mean, he's a tight end. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. They never had a legit elite running back. He's always making these random guys that, aren't big name people, fourth, fifth round picks, free undrafted free agents. He makes them into great running backs. And then, his defense, like, what shutdown corner has been on the Niners in the past 5 years? I mean, you could say Richard Sherman, but he wasn't shut down when he played there. You know what I mean? I mean, the best player on their defense is Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Outside of that, name another star. I mean, I guess DeForest Buckner could be, but at
Eric
that point,
Armstead.
or I'm sorry, Eric Armstead, not DeForest Buckner. He's on the Colts.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Eric
the first
Armstead.
Buckner too.
Yeah, Eric Armstead for sure. That's who I meant to say. Because they don't have DeForest Buckner anymore, of course. So, but Eric Armstead, yes, is another very good player. But when we talk about these Super Bowl teams and these contending teams, these are teams that have talent everywhere. Even the Packers, they've beat the Packers twice now, back to back years. And it on paper, the Packers are levels above them. I mean, let's be honest. The Packers had the best wide receiver in the NFL, probably the top three quarterback in the NFL, one of the best running backs in the NFL, one of the best O lines in the NFL. They got one of the best corners in the NFL, good safeties. They got, good D linemen. Everything they got is solid. And I feel like for the Niners to go out and beat them back-to-back playoff years is that's super overachieving, I think. And I think that kind of secures Shanahan's job, in my opinion.
I agree. I ultimately think that like it needs to do with the quarterback. So hopefully Jillian's performs well. But
Yeah.
like I can't sit here and say that Cincinnati is this all-star level team. Like
Right.
I think that Cincinnati has some good pieces, but like I think Joe Burrow and Jamal Chase
Right.
really kind of propelled them into the Super Bowl this year. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that point too. And I think there's always that chance. And that's why we love football. It's any given Sunday. I feel like at any point, any team can, matchups and the right day can win a game. And we kind of saw that with the Bengals, which I don't know. It's one of those things that are we just underestimating the players that they have? Is it because they're not media guys? Like, is that what's going on? Because I mean, there's not a lot of elite talent necessarily on that defense, but they made it to the Super Bowl. And we know their
yeah.
offensive line isn't very good. So a lot of missing talent there, but they made it. So something gave in that situation. But next we have around the NFL segment of the podcast. First up, Watson has been cleared of all charges officially. Next up, is he suspended? Probably. I would
Yep.
assume this is what I'm going to bet money. Okay. I would bet money he gets suspended 4 to 6 games max. That's it.
Yep.
That's
That's
it.
what I was going to say too.
Yeah. Because he got cleared of all charges. The civil cases were closed and everything. So he has no more, that I know of, at least no more legal issues left with all this stuff. So now it's just the NFL. How long will he be suspended, of course? And the thing is, some people think he won't even be suspended at all just because of the fact that, he was technically not guilty, I guess you could say, with the court proceedings in the the outcome of them. But I feel like at this point, Deshaun Watson, I'm just kind of over it personally, just a little bit. I'm starting to get over it. I was over it a couple weeks ago. But now that he's been traded, it's like, cool. Now we know where he's going to play. Cleveland. Like, okay, who saw that coming? Apparently you did. But but I don't know, that caught me off guard. But anyway, I just feel like, okay, another random thing. They could have took him with the 4th overall pick, and they traded it to the Texans originally to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And now they traded all this for Deshaun Watson. Like, wow, you should have just drafted him in the first place. That's something I almost couldn't have pulled the trigger.
To be fair, they received more, I think, from Texans than they gave up.
What? Did they?
I'm pretty sure Texans
fleeced them.
The Texans just sold everything to get Deshaun Watson in the first place.
Jeez.
If I remember correctly, that trade was not a good one for the Texans.
Jeez. Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense then. With that. But so yeah, what do you think? I know you agreed with me. You think it's going to be 4 to 6 games. But what do you think it should be?
I think it's going to be 4 to 6 games. I'm also completely agreeing with you that I'm so over this Deshaun Watson stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the press conference. The press conference sickened me entirely. Yeah. The lies that came out of the general managers and Watson's mouth was made me boiling hot. The one thing that I'm going to say that it's kind of an interesting development is this Baker Mayfield stuff. Is he going to play the first 6 games that we think that Watson's going to be out and then get traded because the trade deadline is week 8, and if he plays well, he's definitely going to get to a new team? Or do the Browns release him and start Jacoby Brissett? I think that's really the only storyline that I'm interested in right now is this Baker Mayfield stuff.
I feel you there, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually the next thing that we were going to talk about. So it was perfect segue. But Baker Mayfield, I think personally, like you said, there's a couple ways that this could go. It could go where he's traded straight up, which doesn't seem likely as of now because it kind of seems like that would have happened already. Or he's cut, or they keep him because Deshaun Watson could be suspended, likely will be suspended. And they need a starting quarterback for them a couple of games, especially if they think they're going to be a playoff team. But I just think that if I'm Baker, as I've said before on the podcast, if I'm Baker, I won't play. I just refuse. I would just refuse to play. You can find me. I don't care. Because at that point, he's just I guess he could play if that's up to him. But personally, I wouldn't do it. I would force them to cut me because there are teams that will sign him to start right now. And they want him to be their quarterback. That's the difference. He's the type that wants to feel wanted. You know what I mean?
So here's the situation, right? Is that if all of what you said is true, right? Everything you said is true, then why hasn't a team come out and say, we'll give you a 6th or a 7th? 6th or a 7th doesn't mean much.
Right.
Just get out, get him through the door. Why are they waiting for him to get released?
2 reasons.
Other teams can potentially get him.
Right. Well, 3 reasons, I think personally right now. Seattle is the only team that wants him to start right now.
I keep hearing Pittsburgh. I don't know if
nope, it's not happening.
It's not happening.
Okay. No, I don't think so. And from what I've heard, that's just not. I actually have it in my notes. Steelers unlikely, just because of the fact that everything that I've heard, they're not trading him there, and it seems right now that the Steelers feel content with going with Trubisky and maybe a rookie. I feel like maybe Jimmy Garoppolo could be a possibility, but for the asking price, I don't know if they go for him. But I just don't see Baker going to Pittsburgh. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I just don't see it. Like I said, in my opinion, I don't see it. And from everything I've heard, it seems very unlikely as of right now. But like I said, I think Seattle is the only team that really wants him to start, because they're one of the only teams that is still needing an upgrade at quarterback right now that can't get Jimmy Garoppolo because of the division. The 49ers wouldn't trade him to Seattle because they'd have to play him twice a year. Um,
Yeah. Well, like everything that they've been saying is that it seems like Drew Lock is the guy. So unless if
yeah,
that's like hosh posh and
it
they
is.
are definitely saying that just because that's who they have currently, then like potentially, but I don't know. It seems like everyone there is saying Drew Lock, we trust in
Yeah.
this guy. So
I think
I
they're
don't
just
know.
covering their own ass at this point because I think they're saying that because they just traded Russell Wilson, a guy that didn't want to be there clearly, and got Drew Lock in the trade. So they're kind of saying, oh, we feel comfortable rolling with Drew Lock now, and that's fine. But if that was the case, would they have outwardly expressed interest in Baker Mayfield? I don't think so, because personally, if you even think Drew Lock is like a startable quarterback, like you feel okay with him being your starter week one, I think you just go with that because your team's not very good anyway. You know what I mean?
So like has this interest been Seattle Seahawks driven or has it been media driven?
Good
Because
point.
there's a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know for sure which one is which. But from what I've heard, it sounds like it's from Seattle, but it could just be people misconstruing or misinterpreting things. Um, but I don't know. I feel like they're saying, we want Drew Lock, or we're okay with Drew Lock just because they have to in case they can't go get another guy because they can't
Yeah.
get Jimmy G. And their guy might be gone by their 9th overall pick this year. But I feel like what's gonna happen ultimately is Baker Mayfield. Oh, here's another thing that I was gonna say. I feel like another reason why teams aren't trading for Baker is his contract. Because if you trade a 6th round pick right now for Baker, you're giving up a 6th round pick that could be a couple years rookie contributor, in any point is okay. You're taking on $19 million of cap space. So most teams don't even have that cap space right now anyway. Um, Pittsburgh definitely doesn't. And I think that's a big reason why I've been hearing they're not really interested, because they just can't really take on all that cap right now without, moving some stuff around. But well, they could, but I mean, for him, you don't really want to. Jimmy G, you could because he's worth it. But I think that's why another reason why teams are letting him go to free agency, because they're looking to get him on a Mitch Trubisky type contract, 2 years, 14, 15 million. They don't want to have to give him a lot of money and give up assets for him. And honestly, I don't think the teams want him bad enough to give up the assets to where if he signs somewhere else, they'll be like, all right, that's something that didn't happen. They're like, that's okay. It didn't happen. But I do think he ends up in Seattle as a free agent. And I think he signs a 2-year deal for similar money to Trubisky did.
So like I have a follow-up question, and this is about Seattle. And like just popped in my head, and it's probably like super unrealistic. So but what also stops Seattle from saying, hey, teams 1 through 8 will give you pick 9, DK Metcalf, or Tyler Lockett to jump up,
Well,
like a Willis or a
right.
Pickett,
Couple
the quarterback
problems,
of the Jews.
couple problems with that right now that I see. Okay. DK Metcalf is staying in Seattle. I believe 100% sure of that. Tyler Lockett, on the other hand, might be gone. He could be traded after the draft or during. It could be one of those things. But I think, first of all, if you were a team, like Seattle trying to jump up, teams don't want Tyler Lockett in return. They want draft picks, especially teams that are, you know, Jaguars, Detroit, Houston. They're not looking for a Tyler Lockett necessarily.
So like for instance, there's 2 teams in the top 10 that
Okay.
like I can see wanting a big wide receiver acquisition like this. And that's Detroit Lions, because they've been kind of scouring the free agency for a wide receiver, I think DK Metcalf makes more sense to them than Lockett. But also like the Jets, we've heard that they were interested in Hill, and so like, what stops Seattle from saying, "Yeah, we'll give you guys Lockett and 9 for pick 2 or whatever pick it is,
right,
to jump up to secure themselves that Willis or Pickett."
I also think another problem with that is when you're moving up for a quarterback, teams want more to begin with. So I feel like if you were to give up, like, I know, like, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I feel like these teams aren't really looking for a player in return. They want to get that rookie on a rookie deal. They don't have to go out and pay. So like DK Metcalf, he'll probably want a new contract next year. Tyler Lockett, he's already getting paid. Actually, Detroit couldn't even take him just because of his contract, as of right now. But I could see them trading, number 9 and a pick or 2 and, a pick next year or something like that to move up to get a quarterback if they do love one. And it would make sense, which we forgot to talk about this actually, about the Lions bit, but the Lions have actually had talks about the second overall pick already. And it sounds like Brad Holmes is somewhat confident that we can move that second overall pick. And I think Seattle could be a very, very likely spot for that second overall pick. Because like you said, if we take number 9, their second round pick this year, their third round pick this year, their first round pick next year, I'd take that trade. I think they would take that trade to come up and get their quarterback. Then we move down. We could get a guy like Kyle Hamilton with number 9. Then we have number 32. Then we have number 34. Then we have another second round pick and 66 and another third round pick and our compensatory third rounder. And then we get another first round next year. So we have 3 firsts next year. Personally, I would run away with that trade offer right now.
See, the only reason why I don't think Seattle is in the best position to go pick for pick is because they're behind Carolina and Atlanta. And Atlanta, we all know kind of how you feel about the rebuilding process, but they have a bunch of picks this year from the Julio Jones trade and the Matt Ryan trade. And so like, I feel like they could offer a substantially better deal to move up than what Seattle could.
I don't think they can, because Seattle got 3 first round picks for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends on if you are going to trade a 2 first round picks or 3 first round picks.
You'd have to. There's no team that's accepting less than 2 firsts and more to move up to the top 3. If you're going to move up to the top 3, especially for a quarterback, you're giving up 2 firsts and more minimum, in my opinion.
In this week of a draft class?
I mean, if they're moving up to 2, they don't think it's weak.
Okay.
That's just my 2 cents, because I feel like if they would just stay put, you know what I mean?
I understand that logic. That's good logic, but I don't know. I can see it both ways, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just feel like if I'm the Lions, I don't take less just because it is a weaker draft. You would just say no, and then maybe, draft who you want or go with somebody else. I don't think I could do it if I'm Detroit. I would have to have 2 firsts, just because of the fact that in order to move down, unless you're moving to like 4, you know what I mean? If you're moving to like 4, I could see, okay, give me 4, your second this year, second next year, and like a third, somewhere, and then we're good. I could see that for sure. But a drop like 2 to 9 or 2 to 7 or whatever is a little bit more. So I think I would have to ask for 2 firsts in that. But next up, we have speaking of quarterbacks, actually, might as well do this next. From what I've heard, it's most likely that all these quarterback trades and moves happen post-draft. So Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield, this stuff should be kind of figured out once the draft is over, because I personally expect Jimmy Garoppolo to either be drafted on or traded on draft night, or he will play for the Niners next year. It's going to be one of the two. I don't really think he stays on the roster past the draft. Unless they're just, they just don't feel right about Trey Lance, and then they hold and hold and hold until they feel confident enough, maybe like week 2 or something like that, and then they move him. I could see that. But at that point, most teams have a quarterback, and if they don't, they're probably not doing very well anyway. So
I think by the very latest, both of those teams need to have an idea of what they're going to do
yeah,
by draft night. Because,
yeah,
for instance, like teams that we don't necessarily think as the favorites for like Jimmy Garoppolo, like New York Giants, who have like Daniel Jones.
yeah,
Like if they don't think Daniel Jones is their top guy, they're probably gonna draft someone in like 4 or 5,
right,
uh, whatever picks they have. Um, but so like I think that both the Browns and the 49ers need to have some type of plan
yeah,
to offload the quarterback on draft night, or I think they're probably both going to end up getting released.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. I think, for the most part, at least. And I feel like, again, I agree with the point mostly where you said, a lot of these teams, well, they should at least have this planned out of what they're going to do in coming into the draft, because you need to have a very solid plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be a good front office, I feel like you should definitely know, are we going to draft a guy, or are we going to trade for a guy? What are we going to do here? And I really think personally, if somebody does get traded, it'll be day 2 of the draft too. Just because, the first and second round, I feel like, are where you could maybe draft a quarterback in this draft and feel okay about, starting him next year.
Mhm.
But I mean, even the second round, I don't know, because the Niners want a second round pick for Jimmy G, so
Right.
maybe they trade for him during the second round. But I don't know. It's really fluid situation, and I feel like there's a lot of uh dominoes yet to fall.
Yeah.
So it's only March 30th. So we got, another month until the draft's on. So a lot could happen between now and then too. So
Mhm.
um we'll be talking about that as it comes. But I think that is all I have for around the NFL right now. So we will move on to our prospect watch, and
Right.
we will start with Kyle Hamilton. Let's start with Kyle Hamilton. You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You can go first.
All right. I'm excited for this one because Lions fans are going to hate me for it. Let's get into it. No, seriously, this is going to make some people mad. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't think Kyle Hamilton's great, but he's going to slide. I can almost
So
guarantee
like,
it.
yeah, I think it really depends on the Lions' position, right? I think that they can trade down, and if there's no really takers, they're going to take the best player available.
Mhm.
And if Kyle Hamilton is the best player on the board, I think that's a guy. But
I don't take him at 2 at all. I don't take him top 5 personally.
oh yeah,
I won't. I know I've been saying it for a while now, but after doing my deep dive into his film, I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but he ran a 4.740, which he did run a 4.6 or 4.59 at the combine, or so I think, yeah, at the combine. But he's not that athletic. Here, actually, let me just get right into it. So Kyle
uh-huh.
Hamilton is a very long, very big, but thin safety who has good range, not great range. Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. He's got great range, I think.
Yeah.
I think his problem is, like I said, his speed. But he kind of, his instincts take over for, or make up for that a little bit.
Hmm.
But I have here, he's got good size. He's got an okay build, because he is a little lanky. I would like him to add a little bit more muscle, specifically in his lower body, because it seems like his legs are so long that they can get in his own way. At times, when he's trying to backpedal or flip his hips, he has these issues with it. So I don't know if he'll be able to be, a legit single high. I think he can play single high, but I think he'll be more of a roamer, like a robber position, you know, on the defense. I think he's perfect for that. He'll play a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of slot, a little bit of deep safety. But here I have, you know, he can either play safety, slot, linebacker. He's very good in coverage, man or zone. He can drop back deep or into the flats. He's got good eyes, good feel for the play, good tackler, solid feet. Like I say solid because he does have some issues, you know, his lankiness can get in his way at times, and his hip flip, you know, has some issues. But he's very versatile. He's a Swiss Army knife in this draft. He's very smart. He reads quarterbacks very well. This was one of my biggest takeaways about Kyle Hamilton. He's not, like, one of my cons is he's not as active that as you'd hope out of an elite safety. You know, he's not in every single play like you'd hope. But one thing I really do like is that he may not be in the play making the tackle, but when they zoom out of the camera, you can see he's in the right position to make a play if, you know, necessary. If that makes sense. Like, he puts himself in good positions, even though he's not fast enough or quick enough to necessarily get into the skirmish at times. He's doing his job as a safety and, you know, being safety. But he has great range, solid hitter, very, very long arms, and I love it. But sometimes, like I said, his length can get in his way. But he literally looks like a pterodactyl out there, bro. He's like a freaking albatross. Like, it's ridiculous how long his arms are. And then he navigates the trash well, what means I use this a lot with linebackers. And you'll hear me use it mostly with linebackers, but sometimes with safeties, because they do have to do some of the same things. And basically navigate the trash well just means the guys laying on the ground or, you know, people in their way. He can kind of, you know, feel his way through it to get to where he needs to go. Not too many times is he getting tripped up, tangled up. You know, he can get pushed around when somebody gets their arms on him, but it's not too often that he, you know, gets in his own way, basically. And then he's very consistent. He's got great read and react, you know, great instincts, and he's 6'4", 225, which, like I said, you would like him to add a little bit weight, you know, maybe 230, 235, get a little bit more toned up, specifically in the lower body. But then his cons, and this is something that, you know, a lot of people look at Kyle Hamilton, and people that haven't watched the film, or maybe even they have watched the film, they look at him and they go, this is a 100% no bust. He's bust proof. This is a great prospect. He's going to come in and start and be elite from day one. I don't necessarily disagree, but he has his issues, right? And this is why I don't take him top 5 as a safety. I do love him as a player, but I don't think I take him top 5 just because that there's two reasons. He's a safety, so he doesn't have the positional value that these other positions have, but also he doesn't have elite athleticism like you'd like to have out of this position, which he does make up for it a lot of times with his instincts and his read and react. But it just, you know, the athleticism is something that I feel like I need at taking a safety top 5 like that. But his cons are he gets blocked too easily. His lankiness can get in his way. Like I said, he isn't in the play enough for an elite safety, needs to add some weight. Not the elite athlete you'd want. Feet can be very clunky at times. He doesn't have a lot of closing speed, and you want him to be more involved. But with all of that said, I still have him ranked with an A- grade.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't hate him. I still think he's a top 10 pick, top 15 pick. But I feel like from what I've heard from him, he will slide a little bit in the draft. I think he'll go between 8 and 12. Personally, I think is kind of his sweet spot right now. And my comp for him is what we wanted from Isaiah Simmons. Basically, he is what we thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be, or was supposed to be. The only difference with Isaiah Simmons and him is Isaiah Simmons is a very good athlete. I believe he did run a 4.4 at the combine, where he doesn't have that elite athleticism, but he does everything else that we wanted Isaiah Simmons to do, just without the athleticism. So he's a little bit different, but he does all the things that we, you know, hoped for out of Isaiah.
I don't disagree with you. I think that realistically, the reason why he's a top pick in most people's minds is that this draft class is weak. And so him being a top 5 player at safety makes sense in his draft class.
I don't think this draft class is weak, though. I just think we got very lucky last year with so many great players in one draft. I think this is kind of a normal draft, in my opinion. There's the problem with this draft is it's not weak. It doesn't have your elite number one players, your top 3. They're not super elite, obvious, top 5 picks.
So
I think it's there's more depth. That's what this draft is about.
I think that this draft is a lot of depth, like you said, but I think like if you go back probably the last 5 years, this is probably one of the weaker drafts.
Yeah, it's up there.
And
for sure.
Going into the next couple of years, knowing what we have in store, and again, that's all like potential wise. We don't know how they're going to do in college quite yet, but like the next couple of drafts seem better as well.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I agree with you that it might not be like the weakest of drafts, but I think that you probably can draft someone in the 5th round as good as the 3rd round, possibly. Like, I think it's kind of that muddled. But
I don't think it's that. I think it's the opposite, honestly. What I think this draft is, and a lot of people have the misconception that it's weak. It's not a weak draft. The draft itself is very strong, actually. It's very deep. There's a lot of players at a lot of positions that could come in and start day one. I think it's the opposite of what you're saying. This draft, you're going to draft a lot of guys in the top 5, in the top 10 that last year they wouldn't have gone in the top 10. You know what I mean? That's where this draft is weak. It's a first round weak draft. But after that, I think it's a great draft, in my opinion. You're going to get a lot of guys in the 3rd round, in the 4th round, in the 5th round that in other drafts probably go 2nd round. Just because of the depth.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that wide receiver is really deep, but outside of that position, I don't really see a position that's deep.
Defensive end is the deepest position in the draft, easily.
Okay. But regardless, I think that Kyle Hamilton is exactly what you said. He's not as athletic as you like. He has great range.
Oh yeah.
I looked up on YouTube, like of his of the plays that he got beat and then kind of just like came back and recovered. And he shows tremendous range in that department. To me, he seems like a less athletic Jamal Adams or Tyrann Mathieu. Well, he can play linebacker, safety. He kind of likes to get into that box, kind of line up for a pass rush, but he doesn't really have like the physical tools that Jamal Adams and Tyrann Mathieu have to kind of navigate that system. So I think he's going to push back more. But I don't know, it's a weird draft because I really don't see 8 players or 7 players better than him. I still believe that he's like top 5 on my actual like player.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know, it would not surprise me if he's drafted later in the bottom 10. I think he will because of safety, and his linebacker is also kind of weak position. So like being a safety linebacker, like that's just a hard place to get drafted at.
Right.
But like to me, if any of these 1 through 5 teams lose out on the number 1 prospect and they say that Kyle Hamilton is the next person on the board, right, I would be able to see him getting drafted in like top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I just personally, as of right now, he doesn't show me enough to say I don't care about positional value. Do you know what I mean? Like that's really what it is. Like I still have him ranked top 5 players on my draft board, but he just doesn't show me enough to go, yeah, he's worth it. Let's go ahead and take that risk And because another thing is a lot of other teams are thinking the same thing. So it's like, he's
Right.
going to end up falling a little bit, at least farther than we thought.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be second. And I also don't think he's going to be a top 5, but also wouldn't shock me if he's
Right.
second or top
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be that shocked at all if he went either to Houston or New York personally. I mean, if he's there, they have a need and it would make sense. So
And a lot of my pros and weaknesses have already been covered. So
gotcha.
I don't really think that it should be rehashed,
Gotcha. And then next up we have, let's do Chris Olave next. And you can go ahead and start on this one.
Okay. I like Chris Olave. I think he's the best route runner in this draft. I think that he doesn't possess top end speed, but he possesses enough to beat a corner. The guy that he reminds me is Cameron Ridley.
I like that.
So like, I think that he can be a really good number 2. I think that he runs really crisp routes. I love actually his route tree a lot. He reminds me of a future Patriot. I don't know if the Patriots would draft him, but that's exactly what the Patriots like in the wide receivers. Really crisp running tree. Not a lot of top end speed. Patriots don't like speed. And
he's pretty
like all that
fast.
stuff. I don't know if the Patriots will draft him. I think that that's to be determined. But I think that he's a really good number 2 in this draft class. I don't know if he can be a number 1, but it wouldn't really surprise me if he is.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there for sure.
Yeah. What do you have on him?
So pretty much a lot of the same stuff you said. And honestly, I think you're I was excited to tell you my comps, but I think yours is better than mine. Because he fits Calvin Ridley almost to a T. Like it's so crazy because I didn't even think of Calvin Ridley, honestly, which is crazy because now that you say it, it's the same guy pretty much. But so for me, Chris Olave has a good build. He's fast. He runs a 4.39. So basically 4.4 speed. He's got quick feet, good routes, good head movement. He's a willing blocker and a decent blocker for his size, actually. And that's another thing that your Patriots would love. He's slippery in his routes and even, carrying the ball. He has good solid hands, good after the catch. He's a good playmaker. Solid, but not solid overall, but not elite at one thing. And I think that kind of goes to show you that he is a wide receiver 2 in the NFL, in my opinion. I think he is a perfect wide receiver 2. I think he's a great guy, to go to somewhere like New England or Atlanta or somewhere like that they don't necessarily already have their legit elite receiver, but they could get a guy like Olave in the back end of the first round. And he will be very good for them. And then he's good. He's a good blocker for his size. Like I said, he can be used in a lot of different ways. Ohio State used him all over the field, motioning him around, even handed it to him in the backfield sometimes. Will be productive from day one. I think he's going to be probably a top 3 rookie receiver next year, just because he's so good coming off the bat. I think he will come out and be very good, but then his trajectory, I don't think he's got a super high ceiling, basically is what I'm saying. I think his floor is pretty high, but I don't think his ceiling is astronomical. Like personally, his ceiling to me is Amari Cooper.
I think so. Like could see Keenan Allen, like a Keenan Allen trajectory with Keenan Allen. Because Keenan Allen was like a 3rd or a 4th round pick, and he had amazing rookie year, and really hasn't gotten better since then. Like of course he's gotten better, but like he hasn't really grown into like that top tier wide receiver.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if anyone would be like, oh, Keenan Allen's amazing.
He's an amazing route runner.
Yeah.
but I don't think he's one of the most elite receivers in the game. Like when you say top 5 receiver, I don't even think you think about Keenan Allen, which is a good point by you. And then my last pro is he's got straight line and side to side speed, so he can burn you going straight at you, or he can do his routes. He can catch the ball and burn you. I think he's got legit speed. He's not like Tyreek Hill by any means, but he's got legit speed. And then his cons, okay, I don't love Chris Olave, and I'm going to be honest. These are why. If I'm a team, I probably don't touch him in the first round just for these couple reasons. I'm not saying he's not worth the first round pick, but with the receivers that are available, I feel like that, I don't know. It just depends on where you're at, because if you already have an elite wide receiver 1, go Chris Olave, because boom, you just got a wide receiver tandem that's going to be great for years to come. But if you're looking for a wide receiver 1, I would probably go Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, maybe a couple other guys before him, just because I feel like they have a way higher ceiling and have more wide receiver 1 traits. But my cons are, which is my number 1 pet peeve about receivers all the time, he gives up on his routes way too quickly. He runs his routes like halfway almost, it seems like, a lot of the time, because he'll run his route and like just know he's not going to get the ball. So he just kind of slows down and turns around.
Well, so like I feel like that's just the downside of college offenses, because college offenses are really like first target wide receiver go.
Right.
And so like I feel like when college offensive players are developed, they like know who they're targeting, and if that guy's open, which most times he is, then like he's gonna continue with his route, whereas like everyone else is going to like give up and just like block, because they know that they're not the target of that possession. So
that's a good point. I didn't think about that as I was watching, but that is a good thing to take into account. I still do feel like I'm not necessarily saying he's a diva. Like, that's not what I'm trying to get at here. I'm more saying that it just worries me at an effort perspective, because there's other things that I saw too, that I'm like, doesn't seem like he's given a lot of effort here. But he gets knocked off his routes too easily. I know he's a smaller guy, but there's a lot of times that he just gets pressed to death. Like, he just gets pushed around. The safety will come up, put some hands on him, and he's just literally doing one of these, like, can't get anywhere. He's just stuck. And then he has some false steps, which aren't terrible, but a lot of the times his first initial. So as a receiver coach, you teach your receivers, your first step is a step. You're not bouncing. You're going. That's your job. Chris Olave bounces all the time. Like, all the time, he's just bouncing, which probably doesn't, hurt him too much. But when you're talking about the little stuff, that's just a little thing that is a little pet peeve for me, because that just kind of, I don't know, it seems like something that you should always be working on, because little stuff like that can help you later on in your career as well. Just being methodical.
And I think like that type of stuff is going to be, he's going to learn because of the team that he's going to be on.
Right.
To me, it seems that right now he's the fourth, maybe fifth wide receiver on the draft boards. Behind Wilson, Burks, London, and possibly Jameson Williams, depending on like where you put Jameson Williams in his ACL. And so like Chris Olave seems to be bound for like that 20th to like that 32nd spot. And like, as you know, those teams are you're like perennial playoff teams, and they show the best like coaching of the other like the Detroit Lions. No offense, but like I trust New England system over what the Detroit Lions can bring as of now.
Which so I can't hate you for that.
Like, what?
I can't hate you for that. I mean, Super Bowls, no Super Bowls, kind of seems obvious, but
so I think that like that quick stat type of things. Like I think that you're right that he does make those missteps, but I think that can be easily taught.
Oh yeah,
and taught well on a playoff team, which I think he's probably gonna get drafted to.
Here's my problem though. I feel like the coaching staff is telling him not to do it. Like I feel like the coaching staff in Ohio State is good enough to know that, because I feel that's just one of those things. So it's like if he's not doing it now, what makes you what makes you confident that he will start doing it at the next level? Which, you know, he's making money and blah blah blah. There's a lot of reasons why. But
to death, because I think that college stuff is a lot deeper than what in the a lot thinner actually in the college game, and then in the NFL game it's deeper. And so like if, for instance, if he gets drafted by Patriots, Bill Belichick won't mess around with office missteps to suspension.
right.
And then we won't hear from Chris Olave again.
Right.
So I think that's really what's gonna get him up in the mornings.
Yeah.
Trying to practice well and do well in the developing,
Right. And I mean, I don't disagree with that. And then I also feel like he's lackadaisical at times. His feet can get sloppy at times, and I think he could add some weight. Not a bunch, but 5 pounds, 10 pounds could help him. He's just got a slight frame. And he doesn't have that top end speed necessarily, like you said. So you'd want him to be a little bit bulkier, so he can kind of get through traffic a little bit better. And then
so like it's funny because talking to you, I feel like weight is such a big issue for you. Weight's never been an issue for me because I guess this COVID era has kind of changed things, but weight has always been something that like you can easily put on during like the off-season programs.
right.
And so like if you need to add like 5 to 15 pounds, I like that wouldn't like hinder my process and like drafting you.
Right. No, it
Realistically,
doesn't.
like
it's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm not like if he doesn't add 5 pounds, I wouldn't draft him. It's just more of I look at it like, oh, this is a guy, if I were to draft him, this is how I would go about it, because I would want him to add a little bit more weight. Just because there's, the NFL game is a lot different as well. So a lot of the linebackers specifically need to add a couple more pounds just to be able to, keep up, or not keep up, but not get tossed around by these O linemen who are 340 pounds. So really it's not a huge deal to me. I just kind of added in there for some players just because I notice they're a little slight. So in the NFL, they'll need some help there. And then my grade for him is B or B plus, but closer to the B range. And then my comps are Michael Gallup and Brandon Ayuk.
Okay.
Which, like I said, I like the Calvin Ridley one a lot better, but Brandon Ayuk was like almost perfect. And then Calvin Ridley, I think, is pretty spot on. So,
Brandon Ayuk is another really good target. Again, a guy that the Patriots really coveted in his draft. Didn't get him, unfortunately, but
Yep, he's over in San Francisco, unfortunately. But next we got Nakobe Dean. And I'll go first on this one. The linebacker from Georgia. I like him. Don't love him necessarily. I'm not saying that I wouldn't draft him. But I think Devin Lloyd is my clear-cut linebacker one. Because these guys are the two, top 2 linebackers in this draft as of now. For media perspective and, draft boards and all that. But Nakobe Dean, to me, Devin Lloyd, okay, here's my thing with Devin Lloyd. I just think he's more versatile. He's bigger. He's stronger. He fits a lot more schemes better. I just think he's a little bit better player. Nakobe Dean, for me, though, his pros are he's fast. He's solid in coverage. He's got good, quick feet, not many false steps. He's a solid blitzer as well because, being a smaller guy at 6'2", 225, he is a bit faster than most linebackers. So he's very good at shooting those gaps and getting past those O linemen before they're even out of their stance, which is really nice. because he's a guy that maybe you could even use on the edge in certain instances if he can work on his handwork a little bit. And then he's surprisingly good at fighting off blocks for his size. It was something I was like looking for, was for him to get pushed around, and he doesn't really get pushed around too much. I mean, he's a guy that, kind of, he makes himself known for being a smaller guy. He's very strong, and he doesn't back down at all, no matter who it is. I've seen him, fight through guards, fight through centers, somewhat double teams with tight ends and left tackles or whatever. And I've seen him do it. So that's really nice for him for being a smaller guy. He's very versatile. He even plays some safety and some slot over in Georgia, believe it or not. He's a guy that they drop back. And he even played, I guess you could call it outside corner, but it was more of like a free safety position. But he played a decent amount of slot as well. So his coverage is actually pretty good. I don't know. Well, I really don't think that he'll do that in the NFL. I think that was just because Georgia wanted to use him as much as possible. He's just going to be a linebacker in the NFL for sure. Maybe a little bit of slot stuff depending on who's in the slot. But he's definitely a linebacker in the NFL. Solid read and react. He's got good closing speed, good hands, very good burst and acceleration, can rush the passer, drop deep, cover flats, cover man-to-man. And then cons for me: smaller build. He's a bit of a tweener. I'd want him to add probably 10 pounds, 10 pounds, just because if you're going to be fighting through them big guys, you need to add a little bit of weight to not get pushed around, which, like I said, he does a good enough job of that right now. So maybe he doesn't necessarily need to, but for these guys, usually you want them to add weight coming into the NFL, no matter who they are, unless they're one of those really fast, like I rely on speed, then you're like, okay, we'll leave you at your weight. But usually NFL teams ask them to add 5-10 pounds normally. And then he shoots the incorrect gaps a lot. I feel like a little too often for me. It seems like he's kind of guessing sometimes, and it could be, the play call, he's just told to shoot to blitz that A gap. But it doesn't look like a blitz necessarily. A lot of the times it looks like he's guessing to try to see where the run's going, and he just guesses the wrong gap. He gets caught too deep in the backfield. Sometimes he over pursues. I'd like to see him be a little bit more active, kind of like the Kyle Hamilton stuff. He's not in the play as much as you'd like for a 6', 225 linebacker that runs a 4.5 or 4.6. Just not all over the field like you'd want. Needs to tackle a lot better. Personally, this was his biggest downfall for me, was his tackling. He does not have good angles. He has a lot of issues wrapping up. He can just get kind of ran over at times. And it's by guys that aren't very big, like wide receivers will kind of he arm tackles way too much for me as a linebacker. Stands up too high a lot of the times. And like I said before, he could add some weight. And my comp for him is Jayon Brown. I'm going to get that out of the way first, because Nicole Dean was a very hard, it was a hard comp for me, just because there's not too many 6', 225 linebackers in the NFL that play the way he does. And Jayon Brown for me was the closest thing I could find, where he's good in coverage. He's good against the run. And I think Jayon Brown is about what Nakobe Dean could be at his best, in my opinion. I think at his worst, he'll be like a decent second linebacker, a pretty good, second linebacker. But I still give him a B or B plus grade. So he's kind of in that Chris Olave talent pool, in my opinion. I think he's still a first round pick. But I think Devin Lloyd's a top 15 pick, where I would probably wait to take Nakobe Dean bottom 20. Like if he's there at 32, I would probably take him. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So Nakobe Dean is a guy that I think would be targeted high if he came out 10 years ago. I think he's your traditional linebacker. Right now, it seems like downfall has moved in such a way where you want your linebackers to be former safeties who can cover very well. And so we love our linebacker safety hybrids. I feel like all of those guys that we talked about like Kyle Hamilton, a Duggar, like a Jamie Collins. Those guys have always been like able to cover well and get up to the line and play linebacker and safety. It intrigues me that Nakobe Dean has played safety in some stuff, some corner, some slot corner in college, but to me, I don't really know if he has that range or cover skills as a Devin Lloyd does. Nor does he have the height or the distance, height or weight to do it day in, day out. And so I really like his lateral quickness. I think that he can get from end to end, like end to ends really well. And so that like intrigues me. And one of the things that he does super well that's not necessarily shown on a football field is he has like maybe the best leadership skills I've seen from any college football player that I've scouted this year. It seems like the Georgia defense, which is super talented, really relied on Nakobe Dean to push them where they need to go. And I think that without Nakobe Dean, leadership skills, they probably don't beat Alabama.
Right. I mean, and so, that's a big thing to say. So I feel like that could even bring him up your draft board just because of that too.
Right. And so with that being said, I think that he's gonna slide because of his height. 6 foot is not necessarily what you want to see in a NFL linebacker. And to me, he's more 5'10", 5'11" than 6 foot. But like he does have like that lateral quickness, the things that you liked of like DJ Williams back in the day, or like a Ty Bruschi, or right now, I think the perfect fit for him is Patrick Queen from Baltimore. That's the guy that I would comp him. Patrick Queen isn't your prototypical linebacker that you want nowadays, where he can cover, he can play safeties, just like that old school middle linebacker that does a lot of like the smart plays that you ask of him to do. And so to me, just because of position flexibility, I would put Devin Lloyd ahead of him, but I also won't be shocked if Nakobe Dean ends up going in front just because of that leadership aspect.
Right.
To me, both of them are probably late first round picks. Nakobe Dean could slip into the second. And I that's kind of all I got.
So honestly, I'm gonna be real. I think I disagree completely. I think it's the opposite in my opinion. I think Nakobe Dean is a little bit more versatile. He's a little bit better in coverage than a Devin Lloyd. I think Devin Lloyd looks better in zone because he's got a bigger body, so he has more, he can take up more space and kind of be in the right spot still. But the difference for me is I think Devin Lloyd needs a little bit more work on his feet in zone coverage and his back pedal and stuff like that. Not a bunch. Like I don't think he's a bad cover guy. But I think Nakobe Dean is a lot better man to man for sure. Just mostly because of the speed difference. Because I mean it is 0.2 of a second speed difference 40 time wise. But I don't know. I feel like he's more versatile because he can play that slot corner. He can rush the passer. He can play your normal, 3-down linebacker. Devin Lloyd can play 3-down linebacker and rush the passer, but I don't think I put him in the slot at all in any way, unless, Rhett Ellison is in the slot because he's going to get burnt. He's not very fast, but he's very smart. And that's another thing. I feel like Devin Lloyd's better to me because he's just better as a player. He's way better tackler. And that's really the biggest thing for me with Nakobe Dean is he's not a good tackler. Like, I don't know what it is about that. I don't know if it's Georgia's coaching staff or if he just doesn't give enough effort, but his tackling, he honestly reminds me of Jarrett Davis. Like if he was even the leadership stuff, because if he was, I think Jared Davis is 6'3", like 230. If he was a bigger guy, I think I would have used Jared Davis, because it's almost the exact same thing. It's kind of wild. He's a great leader, played in the SEC. He's, faster, but he kind of just throws his body around. He goes in the wrong gaps a lot. He's not the difference is, I think Nakobe Dean's way better in coverage, but that has to do with the size difference, I think, too.
It's interesting that you say that, because, as you know, in the chat that we have, the football chat that we have, I've been a huge Devin Lloyd fan. And one of the big reasons why I'm a Devin Lloyd fan is because of all the highlights I've seen, all of the things I've read. The biggest player comp that I've seen is Jamie Collins and Kyle Van Noy. And a lot of the things that the writers and the video editors have said about Devin Lloyd is that he is a good cover guy, and he is going to be that young Jamie Collins type that the Patriots desperately like in their linebackers. Plus, he kind of fits that size and weight that the Patriots like to cover in the draft. And so, like, to me, and honestly, I really haven't seen much tape on Nakobe Dean. But, like, to me, everything that I read about Lloyd and all that stuff is that he does have that coverage skills that the Patriots covet in that linebacker spot.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you see opposite.
I don't think he's bad in coverage. I just think Nakobe's a little better. Like, I think he's great. Sure. Like, he's pretty good. You know what I mean? He just has a couple things, specifically man coverage, he needs to work on. But you're really not going to ask him to cover, a wide receiver man-to-man ever. So it's not like you're going to be too worried about that. There will be times he'll have to cover tight ends man-to-man, but depending on who it is, it's really the speed thing that I'm more worried about, and his feet, because if you're already speed deficient and you have feet, footwork issues in your coverage, you're screwed, because you're not going to have the speed to catch up after you make the mistake with your feet, and then you're not going to have the good footwork to make up for the speed difference. So that's really my issue with Devin Lloyd. And like I said before, my comp for Devin Lloyd is Demario Davis, and he's one of the best linebackers in the league. And I think that's what Devin Lloyd could be, because he's just that versatile and that good. And like I said before, the biggest difference with Devin Lloyd is, I think he's more of your, prototypical linebacker, because he goes on the field, he hits hard, he tackles up, or he wraps up well, he tackles well, he's in the gaps, the right gaps, he's very smart. And the difference is, I think Nicole Dean's just super athletic and kind of just flies around, and tries to make plays. I never thought about it, but Jared Davis, I feel like, is a great comp for him. Just in terms of his possible career trajectory.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't wait to see more film from Lloyd and Dean. It's funny because, like, doing these podcasts every week, I'm always focusing on what the Lions could do and never really what the Patriots can do. Right. And so, like, I really don't get to scout the guys that the Patriots might be targeting. Right. And linebacker is a big position that they're going to be targeting this upcoming draft.
Right. Gotcha. Well, I think that's all we got for this one. You got anything else?
No, I don't. It's been a quiet week in the NFL, I think.
Yeah, it has. I think the quietest week in a while. And has it been quiet, or has the last couple of weeks just been fucking wild? Because
right.
Like, the last couple of weeks are just what?
Shoot. The Patriots announced that they are putting Patricia and Joe Judge as the offensive coordinators, which is weird. Yikes. They won't be calling plays, so that's good. But it's an interesting format for a team that just drafted their franchise quarterback last year. To put two kind of not great head coaches in charge of his development. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how that's going to play out.
Hold on, guys. We got breaking news. Bruce Arians is retiring.
Yeah?
Moving to a front office role. Todd Bowles will be the new head coach in Tampa Bay.
Todd Bowles?
Todd Bowles.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Wow. I cannot believe that, honestly. Wow.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I saw this coming.
Really?
I saw that. I knew that Arians would probably be on his way out, but I did not see Bowles being the head coach.
No, me either. After everything that came out about Leftwich, I just assumed.
I assumed that too. I thought it was gonna be another Lovie Smith, Dirk Coder situation in Tampa, where like you really can't just lose on Brian Leftwich. And so knowing that they might lose on Brian Leftwich, that's some really weird news. But
yeah,
Todd Bowles, I love Todd Bowles. I
love
shouldn't like Todd Bowles, but I do. So
yeah, it's like Steve Wilkes. I don't know why, but I love Steve Wilkes, but he was not a good head coach. I think he was okay.
I think Todd Bowles is a good head coach.
Yeah, I think Todd Bowles is too.
I think that he was just in a really bad position in New York.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I shouldn't like Todd Bowles, is because he was New York's coach. But I have tremendous respect for that guy. So I think he's gonna do good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got. We'll see you guys next week. Thomas, appreciate you for joining me once again.
Absolutely.
Enjoy doing these every week. We will catch you on the next one. Appreciate y'all for listening. See you.